It's the last weekend of September 2019. The weekend previous to this one we had taken down the mast and stored the sails away in a dry and warm garage. This way we can keep them clean and dry for the whole winter. The water level is very low. I can't sail the boat all the way to Prague. The best I can do is sail the boat to the dam, where there's a crane which will lift the boat, put it on a trailer, and then we have to drive it all the way to Prague, which is approximately 80 kilometers away. Here we are at the dam. I had to wait my turn to be picked up. Once I got the sign to come closer to the crane, I have to maneuver the boat carefully as there is wind which is pushing me towards the dam. Once in position, the staff on top of the dam will lower me 2 ropes which I can tie to the boat, keeping the boat still in place. Once tied, I will receive 2 harnesses which I will put under the boat and which I will connect to the hooks from the crane and be picked up by that. I also have to take out of the water the swing keel and the rudder. This way it won't obstruct when I'm placed on the trailer.
Don't lie to me about your chance about falling in love. What makes you happy is what makes you drown. But what you want and what makes you bad. I'm giving a chance to make things right, but just be honest for once in a while. It was a part of a silly joke. Well, isn't fun, it can stand no more. Don't lie to me about your chance about falling in love. What makes you happy is what makes you drown. But what you want and what makes you bad. I'm giving a chance to make things right, but just be honest for once in a while. It was a part of a silly joke. Well, isn't fun, it can stand no more. Don't lie to me about your chance about falling in love. What makes you happy, what makes you drown. But what you want and what makes you bad. And give me a chance to make things right, but just be honest for once in a while. It was a part of a silly job. Well, isn't fun, it can stand no more.
For safety reasons, I cannot be on board of the boat. Here you can see the boat being lifted up and then placed on the trailer. The boat has to be placed correctly on the trailer. It cannot be too far in the back nor too much in the front. Nor the trailer or the car is mine, so small adjustments have to be made.
Sometimes I wonder why you keep talking like you don't give a fuck about me. You've got a piece of me, and honestly my life wouldn't be the same without you. And babe, we're not just friends, are we more than friends?
Last year I had a small problem. When we were taking the boat out of the water, one of the harnesses got stuck behind the propeller and was holding on the shaft. Luckily enough, it didn't bend the shaft. This year everything seems to be fine.
Don't lie to me about your chance about falling in love. What makes you happy is what makes you drown. But what you want and what makes you bad. I'm giving a chance to make things right, but just be honest for once in a while. It was a part of a silly joke. Well, isn't fun, you can stand them all. Don't lie to me.
Seems like we got everything right. The boat is just sitting perfectly on top of the trailer. This is the winter storage marina. The boat has been placed on a stand and it's ready to be winterized. I like to winterize the boat myself. So I brought all the necessary to do so. Hopefully I brought everything that I need and didn't forget anything. The diesel heater has to be winterized as well. I like to turn it on, run it at full power and get as much fresh diesel inside as possible, making sure that I burn all the residue left in the heater before stored away for the winter. It only takes a couple of minutes before hot air starts to blast out of the vents. Alright, I can turn it off now. So the diesel heater has been winterized. Now let's move on to the engine. Let's get started by removing the stairs and the engine cover. It's advised to winterize the engine by putting fresh oil inside. The fresh oil can nicely protect the engine from any corrosion. Before changing the oil and the filters, the engine has to be heated up. So we're gonna turn it on and let it run for a couple of minutes. However, before we turn the engine on, we have to get everything ready. I like to keep lots of clothes around, just in case there's any spillage. I got all the filters upstairs, I have to bring them inside. The impeller I'm not going to be changing now. The impeller is going to be sitting inside for at least 6 months. It's going to get all crumbled up. I'm going to put a brand new one in the spring before launching the boat back on the water. We are now outside under the boat. In order to start the engine and run it, we have to connect the water hose into the water raw cooling system intake that's over there. I'm gonna turn the water on and run the engine. Okay, back on the deck. Let's start the engine and keep it running for a couple of minutes, making sure the oil inside the engine gets warm enough to be changed. Okay, so meanwhile we wait for the engine to warm up. Let's have a look what we have here. We have the Helix Ultra Oil, it's the fresh one, and inside the box we have more oil and filters.
Don't lie to me about your chance about fall in love. What makes you happy, what makes you drown, but what you want and what makes you bad. I'm giving a chance to make things right, but just be honest for once in a while.
Okay, so let's see what we have in here. Right here is the fuel filter and the oil filter. We're going to be changing both of them. This is the supplementary fuel filter. And in the back we have another bottle of fresh oil and 2 bottles of antifreeze. This is something we're going to run through the freshwater intake to make sure that all the water left behind is going to be replaced with antifreeze, preventing any damage due to frost.
As you can see, the water is now flowing through here. It goes into the coolant, into the engine. Then later on, it's a G48. We're going to take the cover off, take it off, and pour everything inside. Twice.
Well, now basically all the water in the cooling system has been replaced by the antifreeze, making sure that when the temperature drops below 0 degrees, it doesn't freezes and it doesn't break the engine block.
Perfect. That's it. We're finished. The antifreeze runs through the system. We switched it off, so any residue that's left inside won't damage the engine. It's good. It's finished. Just as a kind reminder, when you're finished, leave the valve open so the water can expand if necessary. The same thing applies to the other hose. We're going to come back to this part once we're going to be changing the gear oil.
Coming back to the front of the engine, we're going to change the oil now. There is a pump in the back of the engine. I just have to connect this hose to it and simply pump out the old oil. Okay, let's make sure the hose doesn't go loose, so we're gonna tighten it up. I use the empty antifreeze canisters as deposits where I'm going to be placing all the used oil. Now it's about 5 to 10 minutes of manual pumping. Once all the oil is pumped out, I usually add about a liter, maybe 2 liters of fresh oil, just to run it through the engine to flush it, and then I pump it out again before putting the final dose of fresh oil inside. We have pumped out all the old used oil. We had flashed the engine with fresh oil, and now we're going to change the oil filter. In order to avoid any mess, I'm gonna put some cloths underneath the oil filter. There's always a little bit of spillage, but if we can avoid the oil dropping on the engine bay floor or running under the floor, it's always better to do so.
Don't lie to me about your chance about falling in love. What makes you happy, what makes you drown, but what you want and what makes you bad. I'm giving a chance to make things right, but just be honest for once in a while. It was a part of a silly joke, well it isn't fun, it comes down to more. Don't lie to me about your chance about falling in love. What makes you happy, what makes you drown, but what you want and what makes you bad. I'm giving a chance to make things right, but just be honest for once in a while. It was a part of a silly joke, well it isn't fun, it comes down to more. Don't lie to me about your chance about falling in love. What makes you happy, what makes you drown, but what you want and what makes you
Good, we're almost there. Now that the oil filter is loose, I can untighten it just using my hands. As mentioned before, there is a little bit of oil spillage. I'm going to put the old used oil filter into the box of the new filter and clean the spillage with the cloths. We are now ready to put the new filter in position, but before we do so, I recommend everybody to lubricate the rubber seal and O-ring with a little bit of oil. This helps to remove the oil filter with more ease next time you're going to be changing it. Sometimes it's enough to hand tighten it, but I personally prefer to tighten it with my hand and then give it a small finishing touch with the tightening tool.
Sometimes I wonder why you keep talking like you don't give a fuck about me. You've got a piece of me, and honestly my life wouldn't be the same without you.
Just to make sure there is no leakage. Next is the change of the fuel filter or the diesel filter. It's very simple as the change of the oil filter. Be careful when untightening the filter as it's full of diesel. It will spill eventually, but it doesn't have to. You don't have to spill everything. Notice that I put again cloths under the filter and on the engine bay floor, just to make sure the diesel which spills doesn't run under the floor and makes mess.
Don't lie to me about your chance about falling in love. What makes you happy, what makes you drown, but what you want and what makes you bad. I'm giving a chance to make things right, but just be honest for once in a while. It was a part of a silly joke, well it isn't fun, it comes down to more. Don't lie to me about your chance about falling in love. What makes
According to the user's manual, the filter should be changed at least every 50 hours. I personally change them every year, disregarding the number of hours I do on the engine. I mostly sail, so I get about 20 engine hours on the clock every year. And anyways, I just change it. It's not that expensive, and it's good for the engine and also for the peace of your mind. Well, this is already the new diesel filter. I made a quick run upstairs and I filled it up with diesel to make sure there is as little air in the fuel system as possible. And again, as mentioned before with the oil filter, use a little bit of oil to lubricate the O-ring, the sealant. This way it will be much easier to take off the filter next time you're going to be changing it. Great, we have changed all the filters and now it's time to replace the oil. If you're not sure about the quantity of oil that you should be using, you can refer to your owner's manual. In my case, it's approximately 3.5 liters. Just to prevent any spillage or making any mess, I put another cloth on top of the engine. This way when I'm pouring the oil and there's anything spills out or on the side, it doesn't drain on the engine nor the engine bay. Take your time, make sure you check regularly the readings on the bottle of the oil. You don't want to put too much or too little oil inside the engine. Once finished, we have to let the engine sit for a couple of minutes, making sure all the fresh oil flows through the engine all the way to the oil pan where it's accumulated and where we're going to take the measurement and readings of the oil level later on. Remember that the engine has a new oil filter. The oil filter is usually filled with oil. The new one is empty, so I'm not really concerned if the reading is going to be a little bit above the top mark. Okay, let's get everything ready to take the reading. Let's clean the rod and give it a couple of minutes to sit down, and then we'll take the measurements.
So the oil had to sit down. We're going to take the measurements. Should be between here. This is the minimum, this is the maximum. I'm not really worried if it's going to be a little bit over the top, as there is still space in the oil filter for some oil. Yeah. I don't know if you can see it, but it's perfect. It's just a little bit over the top. Then we're going to run the engine, it's going to drop. It's perfect, I'm fine with this. For the last touches, I'm gonna clean it. Make sure everything is nice, tidy. Up here is the coolant. It's way up the top. It's perfect. I checked it before last week. Clean the bay for any oil drops that might have come down. That's it. We finished. To change the gearbox oil, I again refer to the manual. I have the Thnx transmission. There is ATF lubricant, 0.2 liters. This is the ATF lubricant, and we're going to use a nice small syringe to get the amount correct. I'm not sure if you can see, but I put a plastic PET bottle inside. I've cut an opening over there, so when I open the screw for the oil leakage, it will drop directly inside and I wouldn't make any mess. Then I will just pull it out and close the drain and put new oil inside.
And there she is, the bolt from the oil drain. Now the oil is dropping directly into the opening in the plastic bottle. Once all the oil is out of the gearbox, we're gonna close it again and refill it with fresh oil. Some people say the oil can last for 4 years in the gearbox. Again, it's not that expensive. I do it for the peace of my mind every single year. It takes only a couple of minutes. It's really not an issue at all. Alright, seems like the bottle is getting full. Check it out. Down there is the bottle. I don't know if you can see it. It's almost full.
Good. We use the syringe and the bottle to pour the new transmission oil inside. Should be exactly 100 milliliters. Let's check on this. Again, hopefully you can see where it comes from. Yeah, perfect. Just between here, this is the top mark, and it's just above the, just below the top mark. It's perfect. Can close it. Good. Basically the last thing which remains to be done is the separator for the fuel and for the water. Anyhow, I drained that last week, so it's absolutely clean. We don't need to do that now, and I'll come back to this in the spring because this is when the water is going to be condensating there.
To finish off with the engine winterization, I like to top up the fuel tank with fresh diesel. This helps to avoid any water condensation inside the fuel tank. It's very simple, you just fill up the tank all the way up. And just like that, the fuel tank has been filled up. Well, meanwhile we were messing around with the engine, the gearbox and the fuel tank. My wife was inside the boat polishing all the wooden parts. The boat is going to be empty for the next 6 months, so it's really good idea to protect all the interior wood as much as possible. We use special oily wax. You can buy it in any hardware store, and it creates a nice protective film on the wood. Another part that has to be winterized correctly is the freshwater system. I like to make things simple and easy, so I just fill up the tank with windshield screen washing liquid. Just like the antifreeze for the engine, it freezes at minus 30 degrees Celsius, so it's absolutely safe. Once the tank is full, I just run the pump and make sure it gets everywhere in the freshwater system. I don't use any special liquids, just a standard screen wash you can get at any petrol station. There are different times from -20 to -30 degrees. As you can see, the whole fresh system is now protected, and there's absolutely no risk of any water freezing inside the hoses. When springtime comes, I'll just fill up the tank with fresh water, run it till it's empty, flush it a couple of times, and we're ready to go. Last thing I do is I put these two dehumidizers inside the boat. This way the humidity from the air condensates inside these tanks, and in my mind, and hopefully it protects the interior of the boat better. Once I'm absolutely sure that I won't be needing any more power inside the boat, that everything is done, I disconnect the batteries. I like to take them away for the winter, charge them, store them in a cool and dry place, and then bring them up again in summer. I have two batteries. This one is the engine one, and in the back of the boat there's another one which is used to power all the appliances inside the boat. This is the traction battery. This is the one I use to power the appliances inside the boat. Again, I disconnect the batteries, take them home, fully charge them, and store them in a dry, cool place. And usually all my batteries last about 5 years. My wife didn't believe me that the batteries are heavy, so I told her to carry one into the back of the car. Well, just like that, we got the boat ready for the winter. We treated the engine, the gearbox, the freshwater system. We taken out all the cushions, all the pillows, everything's out. The boat is basically ready to be stored away for 5 months. From my point of view, the key is not to rush anything. It's to take your time and not to make any mess. So the last thing left to do is to clean the boat from the outside, but the weather is really bad. It's raining and it's 6 degrees outside, so I'm going to leave this up to the marina to do so. Well, that's all. Hopefully on next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, the guys from the marina will clean the boat from the outside and cover it up. And from my side and from my wife, that's a goodbye, and I'll see you next year.